Hi, everybody. I'm Don DeBar, and this is the local scene with Don DeBar. That's me. Thanks for tuning in. If this is being aired as scheduled at 11 o'clock on Saturday mornings for the next month, you might be asking yourself, who the hell is this guy and why is he on my TV? You might be asking instead, where's my coffee and could somebody tell those kids to please keep quiet? Whatever you're asking yourself, I'm going to give you a little brief idea of what we plan to do with this show. Hopefully it's going to run every week. We're going to make one a month, so you'll get 4 chances to see it every month. And we're going to cover, as the name implies, a whole bunch of local issues, things, maybe have people in locally. Really the idea is to get feedback from people in the Ossining area about the things that are important to them so we can talk about it. Even though GoTV has been here now for a year or two, and there are a couple of people that have programs on that talk about things that are of concern to at least them, most of the programming is by the village, town, or the officials of the village and town, and the school district. And then there's some people that air meetings of private organizations or public organizations, but non-governmental organizations. And there's a few other producers that are actually getting out with a camera and, you know, talking to people that live here and bringing that to you. But there is, as you look at this station, a huge amount of available airtime and a dearth of information, not just here, but in the Gannett paper and generally, about what's going on in the community and what people care about in the community. So I'm going to try to remedy that a little bit. This is my first TV show on this side of the camera. I've appeared on a couple of public access programs over the last 20 years, but I have been involved in public access television since 1979 here in Ossining, since the cable company was way, way back and down in Tarrytown was called McLean Cable Associates. I was involved with the production of a program called Bug Out, which was the first kind of artsy program, excuse me, that was produced in Ossining, Tarrytown area. I also produced the first softball games that were ever aired on public access television, some of the first Ossining High School sports events that were ever done, the first public access news program, all of these things from '79 through the '80s, early '90s. I worked on a number of other programs, the DARE program, the Video Gyro with John Girolamo. I worked as an assistant producer, as a cameraman, as a guy who sharpened the pencils or whatever, and we had 4 or 5 people doing the work at 20. Audio engineer very often. That's actually how I first got involved. And it never really seemed necessary to me at different points in time to get on this side of the camera to talk to you, intrude into your lives, jump into your homes, and talk about things that were going on here. Not because there was anything more or less important going on then or now. But I don't know, lately with the change in the way the Gannett paper is being distributed, the New Journal News, for example, is no longer even nominally or in name a local paper. It's now a regional paper, which means that, for example, today, this is being taped on November 19th, in the Westchester section of the local paper, there was, on page 3, a small article in the sidebar about that big, about one event in Ossining. Another, like a street beat police watch kind of article about a domestic problem, and one other small article, period. Only references to Ossining in the entire newspaper. The Ossining Gazette, which is a weekly that's published locally, had a great deal of information about what was going on in Ossining. So obviously there was stuff going on, but it wasn't in the paper today. Also, the forum that citizens use to talk to each other in the newspaper, the letters to the editor section, since you had before Citizen Register, the Reporter Dispatch in Putnam, the Peekskill Evening Star, excuse me, all 3 of those are now served by just one newspaper. You know, they've been replaced by one newspaper. Before, it was hard to get a letter published in the letters to the editor section because it was a limited amount of space. Now they have the same amount of space for those to cover, take the place of those 3 newspapers. So, you know, of course, there's like a third of the available space now for a letter to the editor that there was before. So citizens have that much less of an opportunity to talk to each other through that medium. There are other reasons, but at the moment I have the time and the inclination to do this. Hopefully you'll appreciate it. Hopefully no one will blow my car up or burn my house down because I decided to do this. And for those of you that haven't already hit your clicker, I hope you enjoy what we have to cover. So let's see. I'm also, as I said, new at this. It may be a little rough going the first time, but hopefully not too much so. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, we'll start with the just past elections in Ossining. The village had the mayor and 2 trustee candidates up for re-election this year. It's Mayor Tom Cambereri, Trustee Penny Markowitz Moses, and Trustee Ernest McFadden. They were up for re-election. And opposing them was local attorney Sal Liga, who was a young guy. He's 29 years old, bright guy too. Ann Perrin, who was on the village board before, and also a young law student, Christina De Silva, whose family's been here for a long time, and probably most of you know someone in her family. Anyway, she was 23 years old and ran her first political campaign. She's also a bright kid, and I guess I'm showing my age. I don't mean to denigrate her in any way. So there were some interesting things that went on for both Sal Liga and Christina De Silva. It was their first campaign, running against pretty entrenched incumbents, except for Ernest. Ernest was running for his first re-election. He'd been in for 1 term prior. But both Penny and Tom have been on the board for a zillion years, or half a zillion years. I don't want to imply that they're old. As long as I've been an adult, anyway. So the election was interesting. It seemed, from going around the community, from hearing people, I'm out a lot. I go all over the place. I've been living here for a very long time, again, betraying my age, and I know a lot of people. I went to high school here, and there's a lot of folks from back then. I went to grade school here, too, so there are people that have stayed in Ossining. I know them. There are people that have come in. I know a lot of them. I've been in the real estate title business for about 25 years, and very often at different points in my life, I've been at closings. When people buy a house and move into Ossining, I'd be at the real estate closing. So I'd meet a lot of people the first day in Ossining, even before the first day in Ossining. So I got to know a lot of folks out here. My father and mother were very involved in the recreation programs here in Ossining. They helped found, in fact, the town recreation leagues. That there's one of them that's named after him, along with Gene Payne, and I don't even want to start naming people. There's a whole host of people. But in the process of that, I'd spend a lot of time either at my folks' house, and there'd be a zillion people at their house, and I'd get to know them, or I'd be running around with my mother carrying 400 hot dogs someplace and meeting people there, or with my father gathering statistics to key into his computer so they would know batting averages of all the 9-year-olds in town or whatever. So, belaboring the point no more, the point being that I know a lot of folks here, and when I go out and about, I hear a lot of things. So I was hearing a lot of people being very upset, or a strong amount of discontent with the way the village board was handling the village's business. I heard it from about many different things. That the post office had taken a long time to complete. That the riverfront development project was kind of heaped together real quick and pushed around election time, and people were nervous about that. That there was some kind of problem with the police department, and people had bad feelings about the way the village handled the Malone incident and wondered what they were doing. It seemed like they were trying to cover something up. People that I knew that had relatives on the police force were wondering why the mayor didn't seem to be supporting the police. People that lived in the area where the new Chris Malone were wondering what are they covering up, what really happened. Yeah, I heard a lot of people upset about a lot of things. So I was surprised that at the election that the incumbent board won 3-1, basically, 2.5 to 1. They won by a lot. And then I did a little analysis of the numbers, and I found out, well, okay, somewhere around 50% of the adults, the voting age adults in Ossining, are registered to vote. Somewhere around 50% of the registered voters voted. So, in other words, about a quarter of the adults in Ossining actually voted in the past election. That's kind of shameful of it in itself. And so if you figure that the winners got 65% of the vote, which is about right, that means they got somewhere in the vicinity of 15% of the vote of the people that are old enough to vote in Ossining. It's hardly a landslide, but they won, and they get the chance to govern now. So I kind of let it rest, and then Tuesday, I'm looking at the Gannett paper, which did have something about Ossining in it that day. On page 3B of the Tuesday, November 17th, there's an article, the title is, "Election's Over, but the Fighting's Not." And the largest picture, by the way, of Sal Liga that showed up in this newspaper for the whole campaign shows up in this article after the election. It says, Ossining Democrats say GOP runner-up impugned their character with Dumb and Dumber signs. You can see this, how focused it is, and this is sort of a local access production. We don't have 85 technicians here, no dancing girls, none of that stuff. So if you couldn't see it, you have to take my word for what it says. It says basically two village officials who won re-election earlier this month are accusing an opponent of impugning their character during the campaign. Mayor Tom Cambereri and trustee Penny Markowitz-Moses have filed complaints against Republican mayoral candidate Salvatore Liga with the Westchester County Board of Elections and the Grievance Committee for the state's 9th Judicial District. Now, Sal Liga is a lawyer, so that's why someone would go to the Grievance Committee if they have a complaint about a lawyer. Generally, though, that's about a complaint they have about the way they're conducting their law practice or someone's case as their attorney or their conduct as an attorney. The Liga slate repeatedly criticized the Democratic incumbents for ignoring the community's concerns. Cambereri defeated Liga by a ratio of more than 2 to 1. Yeah, that's, like I said, it was like 62% of the vote. Cambereri and Markowitz-Moses accused Liga of far exceeding the parameters of campaign fair practices. They specifically objected to 2 posters, one with the words "Dumb and Dumber" beneath their pictures, and another with "Beware of the baloney" superimposed over Cambereri's photo. Most of the people, some of the people in Ossining know this. Tom Cambereri owns Rocky's, I don't know if he owns, runs, whatever. Rocky's Deli is Tom's Deli over in Millwood. Says that the 2 also object to what they described as misleading and outright false campaign flyers, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they had some complaints about the conduct of Sal Liga's election, specifically these 2 campaign posters. Now, here's what is pretty ridiculous about this. Penny Markowitz-Moses in this article says, the article says, Markowitz-Moses admitted that she took down about 300 of Liga's nasty derogatory posters, but then said she did not remove any legitimate campaign posters. So she's, deciding what's legitimate, what's not in a political campaign that she happens to be also running in. It's an interesting thing. While she and Cambereri expected a certain amount of criticism during the campaign, they filed the complaints because they believed the personal attacks had crossed the line, she said. This was one of the most unnecessarily campaigns this village has ever seen. Okay, so that's in Tuesday's paper. The thing I'd like you to keep in mind is the fact that A, they filed a complaint with the Westchester County Board of Elections, and B, that they filed a complaint with the Grievance Committee for the bar. The 9th Judicial District is the judicial district that Ossining happens to sit in. So then on Wednesday, not much in the paper, by the way, about Ossining on Wednesday. There was someone pleaded guilty to slaying. That's about it. However, on the editorial page, and Ossining doesn't generally make it to the editorial page, it says, candidates come up with wrong response to opponents' village campaign tactics. 2 re-elected, I'm reading from the Gannett Journal News, Two re-elected Austin Village officials have misdirected some misguided complaints about their opposition's campaign tactics. Misdirected and misguided actually isn't redundant, as you'll see. The mayor and trustee, both Democrats, are complaining the league was out of line and the Dumb and Dumber and the Beware of the Baloney posters, which we talked about already. And it repeats that Penny Markowitz Moses said, "I find this to be totally unacceptable, childish, and reprehensible." Okay. Then it says, equally unacceptable, childish, and reprehensible was Markowitz Moses' initial response. She tore down about 300 of League's posters during the campaign. That's what they say. In the other part of the article, they say that she admitted that she did that. I haven't had the opportunity to ask her that, but I'll take their word for it for the moment. She only took down the nasty, derogatory ones, and they quote her there's quotes around nasty and derogatory anyway. And left up the legitimate, and there's quotes around that too, assuming that they're imputing that to her. It says, now there's an interesting concept, one candidate making the judgment about what the electorate will see of an opponent's campaign. I think that's also interesting. It says, now Markowitz Moses is supplementing her vigilantism, that's her being a vigilante, by joining Cambereri in making formal complaints about League's campaign. Then it says, but they've gone to the wrong place because they filed with the County Board of Elections and with the Grievance Committee. Now, they correctly say here the Board of Elections has nothing to do with regulating campaigns. They oversee elections. They make sure the voting booths are there. They make sure the list of registered voters are there. They, all of the mechanical stuff that has to do with voting. They make sure that, Snidely Whiplash isn't in the back of the voting booth taking out, the opponent's name off the ballots and such, okay? That's their job, and they conduct the election. The conduct or the behavior that a candidate has during a campaign is way outside. It's not part of their charge. It's not in their jurisdiction to cover that stuff. So they filed it. These guys have been in office for 100 years. They filed it with the wrong place in the first place. Whatever. Then they filed with the Grievance Committee, and it says here, what does it say about it? We fail to see why a panel that screens lawyers' professional behavior would be interested in how one of them ran a political campaign. Duh. I mean, it's almost like somebody saying, if you're a butcher and you belong to some association that you have to, like a co-op to buy meat together, that if you run against me, if you call me names, if you do something, I'm going to tell them to stop letting you buy beef with them, or whatever you want to use as an analogous situation. It's almost like blackmail after the fact. It's saying that, okay, you ran against me and you said things about me that I don't like or I didn't want the public to hear, and now I'm going to punish you. And it's interesting. Keep in mind the word punishment, okay? Now, I was speaking with someone who spoke with someone who saw a copy of the letter that was filed by, with the Grievance Committee by, allegedly by Tom Cambereri and Penny Markowitz Moses. And I was told that it was signed Mayor Tom Cambereri, Thomas G. Cambereri, however, and Deputy Mayor / trustee, or vice versa, Penny Markowitz Moses. In other words, that they filed a complaint with the Grievance Committee in an official capacity to punish someone for putting up posters that they thought were derogatory about them. Now, if you read an article about that, about the Soviet Union, you'd be like, yeah, build some more missiles, blow the hell out of them guys and such. And, there's some logic to that, maybe a little twisted, but there's some logic to that. When you find out that it's going on here in Austin, it makes you just scratch your head and say, what the hell is going on? First of all, if I were, well, I am, as a resident of the village of Austin, the possibility that these two have exposed this village to liability for like $1 million lawsuit from a candidate for office who says somebody was tearing down my posters, suppressing my right to free speech, political speech, which is, if people that have an understanding of the law know that this is the most jealously protected speech in this country, the right to say what you want about public officials, particularly in the heat of a campaign. So that in the process of trying to suppress that speech, they cloak themselves in municipal clothes. In other words, I'm an official of the village of Ossining making this complaint, not just the guy who runs a deli or whatever, not just local folks. That brings all of us into the fray, basically. The fray being that when somebody turns around and sues and says, the village is trying to suppress my right to free speech, they sue everybody, including the village. Now, guess who's got the deep pocket? The village. Your deep pocket. So anyway, I don't want to get off on that too much. It's our first show, and that was just something that I saw the last couple of days that had me tripping a little bit. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in Austin that I want to talk about today. The one thing about this election, though, when you're an incumbent, and this is in general, okay, people who are holding office already, it's almost impossible to kick them the hell out. If they could be the worst scoundrel in the world or the most incompetent, they could be asleep at the wheel or drunk, doesn't matter. Unless they, steal a car with a 4-year-old girl on their way out of a bar somewhere on camera with 12 witnesses, they're going to get reelected. How can they do this? Well, first of all, it's a fact. In the New York State legislature this year, the state, you have a governor, like the president. You have the state legislature, it's like Congress, and then you have a judiciary, just like you have, the federal judiciary, the 3 legs of state government. Well, in the state legislature, which is made up of the Senate and the Assembly, it's two houses. Every person that was up for re-election, and it was the entire legislature, okay, we're talking 230 of them or something, all were re-elected. Somebody's calling us. Let me just kill that for a second. Okay, sorry. Every one of them was re-elected. Now, it's pretty high odds that it's not just that everybody did a good job and everybody was elected on the merits, that they did so well last year and the prior year, because they have 2-year terms. Senators have 2-year terms, and Assembly people have 2-year terms in New York State. It's not because they did a great job, it's because the job has so many perks. Wow, this is really going by quick. Anyway, something to think about. We need to look at that, and we'll discuss that some more. One of the things I want to try to do is encourage people to both use critical thinking when they're looking at these matters, political matters. And by the way, we're not going to just talk about politics. This got off way on the wrong foot. First thing I want to talk about is what goes on in Austin. We have some of the most talented musicians, artists, writers, producers, and stuff on the whole planet living right here. Some of them have been recognized by the whole planet. Unfortunately, we lost Sonny Chirac. Jimi Hendrix, who was one of the greatest guitar players in the world, said that Sonny was one of his main inspirations. Okay, there's a whole litany of people who are wandering around the world. Vernon Reid and others who are famous musicians that say the same thing about Sonny. Let's see, we have Ezio Flagello, who was a world-famous opera singer that was living up on Saddle Ridge Road for a long time. We have, lots, okay? We have painters, we have TV producers. I want to have them in or talk to them or, talk about their work or whatever sometime, and I want to talk about it with you. I would like you to call me at my house, 914-945-0815. I'll probably be home when you're watching this. It's Saturday morning. If I'm not home, my machine will be on. But my machine is on most of the time. Leave me a message. If you want to just leave it and not have me get back to you, that's fine. It's, you have something you want me to hear you say, cool. If you want me to call you back, I'm glad to do that. If you want to mail stuff to me, I'll give you an address to mail it to when you call. The number's 914-945-0815. Some of the other stuff I want to do is maybe wander around Austin with a camera and take some video of some of the things that are really going on that aren't in the paper or on any other TV shows that you're watching or listening to. Some of the other things are how you can organize for change, like using the PSAs that you see on this station to try to organize groups of people that are interested in the things you're interested in, coming into GoTV at 923-7745 and making a public access show like I'm doing. Joining local parties, join the local Democratic Committee, the local Republican Committee. Probably there's going to be a local Green Party forming after this recent election. Also, there's the Independence Party. Join them. If you bring 20 of your friends in there, you'll dominate a local party, and you'll be able to get your own people elected or get people elected that are going to listen to what you say at the beginning rather than pretending that they're listening to you at the end. Anyway, I'm probably going to go off the air in the middle of this conversation, but maybe not. I've only got 3 minutes. Cool. What else do I want to cover? Remember that I told you while we're talking about organizing for change in Ossining that 50% of the adults aren't registered. If you're registered, get somebody that you know to register to vote. You don't have to tell them how to register. If you need forms to do that, I suggest you call my friend Ernell. Now, those of you that know me know that a really good friend of mine, Wayne, over most of my life, I played music with, and he lives half in Chatham now and half here. And his nephew, God forbid I'm so old, he's an adult and competent one. Ernell, his phone number is 941-7452. Call him up and he will send you a registration form or bring it to you and help you fill it out. Register to vote. Let's see, what else? Come down to Go TV and make a TV program. Learn how to use the equipment. Again, that number is 923-7745. Let me see. There are some people that come to our local meetings. Some of them talk more than you want, maybe about stuff you're not interested. Others don't talk at all about the things you are interested in. Most of those are the elected officials, right? Some of them, Linda Clay, Walt, there's a whole bunch of people that have been involved in stuff, whether you agree or disagree with what they say about individual things. They spend most of their time trying to figure out what the hell's going on around here. And if you either want to help do what they're doing or work in opposition to what they're doing and feel strongly about it, I suggest you get involved. First thing to do is just start coming to these meetings. They're open to anybody. And don't take no for an answer. When you ask a question, people try to blow you off and make you feel like you're ignorant. You're not ignorant. If you're ignorant, it means you lack information anyway. And the people that work for you, that you elect, or that other people elect in your name, are supposed to give you all the information that you want. Most of that is required under the law, as a matter of fact, under the Freedom of Information laws. But in any event, come to meetings and ask questions. Talk to your neighbors and find out what's bothering them. And if there's a lot of stuff in common that you have that's bothering you, come down to meetings and tell people you want this taken care of. You're paying taxes. It's possible to do that. Let's see. A minute left. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to remind you my name is Don DeBar. I'm going to remind you that the name of this show is The Local Scene. I'm going to remind you that it's on for the next, every Saturday until I make another one, which will be sometime in December. And I'd like to thank you for joining me and look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.